Who were some assistant coaches that you covered in the 80s and 90s that really stuck with you?
Okay. I'm happy to do that. I and I have a story to tell. So if I'm old. If I forget, say, Dad,
Okay.
you had a story. Well, I'm talking about Bill Walsh's staff. Bill, God love him, wanted to have the absolute best assistant coaches. He wanted to be challenged. He didn't want to have a bunch of bums around him. I felt that Chip Kelly, one reason you knew he sucked was because his coaches weren't very good. And I would say same with Tom Sula and poor Mike Singletary. They didn't have an idea of excellence or of being challenged. Bill had Dennis Green on his staff helping with offense. Dennis Green was a genius. He was tough. And he had Mike Holmgren. And his defensive coordinator on the back end was George Seifert, who would go on to win 2 Super Bowls. So I want to say, I'm talking about those 3 in particular as showing how demanding Bill was, how high his standards were. And he wanted to sit in a meeting and have someone politely, because Bill had an ego, say, Coach, have you thought of it this way? In a very polite way, but he needed to have that input because he was a great head coach and he wanted great people around him. Bottom line, and I would say Shanahan is the same way. One of the reasons I respect him and admire him is he has the same need for excellence that Bill had. And I've been around a lot of coaches or managers in other sports and on the 49ers who didn't even get the concept.
Mark Jackson?
Oh my God. Iggy, there were people around that organization who used to tell me, who the heck are these assistant coaches that Mark Jackson had? And again, I don't know him that well, but I don't think he wanted anyone who could challenge him.
It shows 2 things. 1, you don't want to be challenged. 2, you don't have a network anyway.
Good.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
Mark Jackson is perfect. He's a perfect example. And that's one of the reasons they got rid of him. And then Steve Kerr comes in and he makes Ron Adams his defensive coordinator. Ron Adams is a genius. He's the best assistant coach in the NBA. Everybody knows it. And God love Steve Kerr. He had the same passion for excellence and to be surrounded by excellence that Bill Walsh had.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say with Steve Kerr, what you would say is he an all-time great, brilliant head coach? Well, I don't know, but he certainly is no dummy. He knew to put Ron Adams on his staff.
Oh yeah, he's very bright. Is
Very
he
bright.
Coach? We'll find out. He's certainly done well at the beginning.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I want to tell you a story.
Okay.
Because I like to tell stories.
Sure.
When I first started, and this is about a 49ers assistant coach who and you like and I like. It's about Sam Wyche, who helped Bill with the offense. One time I was talking to Sam and he said, Lowell, I know you like Bill, but he said, you got to be careful with him. If you cross him, he'll get you. That's what he told me. And now it was obviously, he'll get you. And it turns out that Bill would settle scores.
How? Tell me. I want to know.
How about when my book came out and he didn't like it? He went on national television and went after me.
He felt you crossed him because you quoted him saying a couple of curse words.
That and a few other things. He wanted to be portrayed as the second coming of the Savior.
Yeah.
And I just portrayed him as a really great guy. And it bothered him. But anyway, that's not the story. So this is when I first started at the Chronicle. So it might have been 80, 81. And the Raiders and Niners played an exhibition game over at the Oakland Coliseum. And I didn't even know who the hell was who. All I know is I was waiting to go into the locker rooms, and the coaches came down, from near the press box. They came down in the elevator, Iggy, and Sam Wyche had a bloody lip, and he was holding his face, like that, and then it became clear. Everybody found out that in the elevator, the Raiders defensive coordinator, Charlie Sumner, had slugged him and busted his lip.
They were in the same elevator?
Well, let me explain what happened. Because I know someone and you know someone who was in that elevator. Okay.
Okay.
One of our sources. So what happened was, as you recall, in the press box, they would have the visiting team coaches in one box,
Yeah.
but on the same level,
Mm-hmm.
and the home in the same level. And there's the one elevator. When the game ends, they hold the elevator for the coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't get in.
That's
The
right.
media has to wait. Well, they would go down together in the same elevator. And the protocol was you would look at the floor. The Niners had won. That's important. You would stare at the floor. You wouldn't even talk to the guys from the other team. It was gentlemanly.
And you
You
certainly
would
wouldn't punch the guy in the face.
no, but here's what happened. So they're in the elevator going down, and you expect just quiet and people looking at the floor. Sam Wyche starts to woof on the Raiders coaches. And we kicked your butt and all of this. Well,
Wow.
he was talking about their offense beating the Raiders defense. Charlie Sumner was the defensive coordinator. He let it go on for a while. Then he walked over to from my source, Sam Wyche punched him in the mouth because he had broken the protocol. And here's the interesting thing. Wyche slid to the floor, he got knocked down. None of the 49ers coaches helped him up because he had broken the rules. So I like Sam Wyche. In fact, I kind of love him.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting story, and I don't think anybody really knows that.
That is so interesting because a lot of these coaches, they work together for a year or two, but they all change teams. They're their own fraternity. So, it could be Raiders versus Niners one day and then they're on the same. That's interesting.
Yeah, and you're supposed to show respect and keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Just stare at the floor because you're with the other coaches. Respect the job they did. Charlie Sumner was mortally offended that he had broken the rules, and none of the 49ers coaches defended Wyche because they agreed with Sumner.
I interviewed Weiss once about 5 years ago, and he was saying that I think when he either was at the University of Indiana or he was with the Bengals, and he got to know Bobby Knight. And that's where he came up with the idea of the no huddle offense because Bobby Knight wouldn't huddle. And he just loved everything about Bobby Knight. So maybe that explained a little bit about Sam Weich's personality. Someone who liked to push the envelope and be a little bit,
Yes.
I don't know. Anyway, so I interviewed him. That was interesting. And for the same project, I interviewed Dennis Green. This was like 3 months before Dennis Green died. And I remember asking Dennis Green, like, what is the West Coast offense? Because he's one of the people who invented it. What exactly, how would you define it? What makes it the West Coast offense? And he was real clear. It's all about the drops from the quarterback, the 3-step, the 5-step, the 7-step, timing everything. From his perspective, before Bill and Dennis Green made the science of the drop, quarterbacks just dropped back, scanned the field, and figured it out. What Dennis Green and Bill Walsh did was time everything. No, it's a 3-step drop, it's a 5-step drop, or it's a 7-step drop. And that's one thing that the entire NFL not stole, but adopted from Bill and Dennis.
I'm glad you mentioned Dennis. I liked him very much. I knew him really well. And I'm going to tell you something interesting, and I don't know if I've ever told you this. And then I think maybe we'll be done for the day. One time I was talking to Bill Walsh, and he said, Lowell, who do you think is the best offensive coach that has been on my staff that I've worked with? And I didn't know what to say. So I was kind of tongue-tied. And Bill said, look, the most creative is Sam Wyche, but he's not the best. The best was Dennis Green.
Wow.
Yeah, not Holmgren. The best was Dennis Green. I think he felt that Dennis had the best combination of brilliance, creativity, and leadership. And he did. Mm-hmm. He was so tough and brilliant. And I really liked Dennis. I was sorry when he died. Anyway, I don't know if I ever told you that, but he gave, Bill used to give me quizzes, which I loved. And he said Dennis Green.
He used to give you quizzes, huh? Can you tell us one more quiz he gave you before we leave? He used to give you boxing quizzes a lot too, didn't he?
Oh, we had a one going, we had for years who would win, Muhammad Ali or Joe Louis. And he adamantly, Joe Louis, adamant. He once said to me, Lowell, if Joe Louis didn't come toward Ali, and you knew Louis would, there wouldn't be a fight. That's what he said. Because Ali he felt would just try to avoid him, run away. I used to say Ali, no question. I'm not so sure now. I mean, it's in a way it's crazy, right?
Yep.
To even debate that. But I think I've told you this. One time, the Niners, Stanford, when Bill was there the second time, went up to Seattle to play University of Washington. They were staying at a big hotel downtown. And on a Friday night, they had a team meeting in one of the big ballrooms. And ordinarily, I would have gone to them. I just probably wasn't in the mood. So a few minutes before they went into the ballroom, Bill and I were having the conversation about Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali, and he was really worked up. Lowell, I think he would have hit too hard for Ali and blah, blah, blah. He says, I got to go. Then he goes in, and for about an hour, he's in this ballroom. It ends. He comes out. He's the first one out. He sees me, and he says, and another thing about Joe Louis and Ali. It's clear he was thinking about it the whole time during the meeting, and he picked up the conversation right away when he walked out. I loved him for it.
Back to a more important topic. A fantasy boxing matchup that will never happen. Well, the way I look at it is Ali's two most impressive wins were against Foreman and Liston, who were big punchers that Ali exposed as really having no endurance. He just wore him out after like 5 rounds, 6 rounds.
Yes.
I mean, he couldn't have done that to Joe Louis. Joe Louis wouldn't have got tired, would he?
No. Here's the thing. I love this. No. Joe Louis is in great shape. And Joe Louis, he was not fast on his feet. And Ali was gorgeous. He was. But Joe Louis had very fast hands. Yeah. And the other thing is, for a boxing guy, he punched in combinations. Left jab, left hook, right. Boom, they all came. He was explosive. On the other hand, Ali may have been too quick for him. That's where I can't figure it out. He may have been able to stay out of harm's way, beat him with jabs, cut him, get the right in, like Jersey Joe Walcott used to knock Louis down with rights, in, quick, out. Ali might have been able to do that. So I don't know who would win the fight, but boy, it would have been a hell of a fight.
So you're saying it would have been Ali by a decision or Joe Louis by a knockout?
Maybe not a knockout, but Joe Louis is hurting him, dominating him the way Joe Frazier did in the first fight. Right. Joe Frazier kicked his butt. Right. Ali could not get away from those left hooks.
No, I watched that fight a few times recently, and Frazier must have landed 30 of them.
Yeah, and Ali had no idea. The whole thing with the left hook is you're supposed to go under it.
Right.
Ali didn't like to do that.
Right.
And he backed up from left hooks, and that's exactly where they land. Now, he could do that when he was younger against Frazier, but when he was older, and he was not the same athlete that he was after 3.5 years away, backing up, he didn't have quite the speed, and he got hit with a lot of left hooks.
Yeah. Well, hopefully between now and our next podcast, they can arrange the fight between Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis so we can learn once and for all who the ultimate champion would be. Dad, this has been a real pleasure. Thanks so much for doing this with me again.
I really loved it. We'll talk in a few minutes on the phone.
Yeah. All right, Dad. Talk to you soon.